me tell you something, young blood. In the beginning, isolation is gonna feel like a curse. Choosing this life will definitely put you to the test. Do it without regret. See, now death, you can't control. But you can't control yourself, your mind, your actions, even your hunger. When you can't go any further, go harder.
Gentlemen, the time has come once again to discuss things.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen. I'm Sid Purdue. Joining me today is...
A geek for fun.
Indeed. Today we're continuing our fan projects reviews with a review of a Blade fan film. This is called Daywalker, Blade Origins by Hidden Vault Productions, or Hidden Vault Films. I can't remember the channel name right off the top of my head. Sorry about that, guys. Alfie, you a Blade fan at all?
No, he's someone that's kind of out of my general wheelhouse. I've never read any Blade solo stories, but I've seen him in a couple of team-ups. He's shown his face, he's shown his fangs now and again. And I always kind of like the idea of the character. It's just never really sought him out. But he's not someone that I think is like bad or anything. I just think concept-wise, the idea of a Daywalker vampire going around taking out the rest of them and kind of being the only guy in Marvel who deals with that shit. I think is really, really cool. He's got a great design. He's got a killer ass name. So yeah, I'm really down to learn more about Blade. So I'm glad you recommended this. I'm always open to exploring like those kind of underrated characters. And I think Blade, despite getting 3 films, at least these days, is definitely a more niche character.
Yeah, it's weird because he's right at the beginning of that whole superhero film extravaganza. Because it's not even a renaissance anymore. It's been going on for like 20 years now, right? He's right at the beginning of like that big kickoff. It's kind of comes down to Blade and X-Men, really. And it's just so much of like what they did in the films. It's I don't think you can... I'm not sure if you can do this anymore or not, because obviously the films influence the comics in a big way, but that's only because so many of the films are paying like reference or paying so much respect to the comics in a way that they just didn't used to. You know, this is no Steel, this is no, or the original Blade films rather, are no Steel, they're no original X-Men or something where it's like, oh, we're not going to put the costumes on, those are just silly. You know, you look at Blade comics, and I've only seen a handful, but you look at Blade comics from before the Wesley Snipes films, and it's a world of difference compared to after them. Like there are very few characters that have been as impacted by their cinematic counterpart as I feel the Blade character was. And that's speaking as someone who doesn't even really know that much about Blade in comics or whatever. It's just you can visually spot the distinction happen, and the Wesley Snipes films do so much to just impact the character going forward. It's kind of funny, and it's definitely, I feel, reflected here in this you know, pretty good length for a fan film. Usually a lot of them top out around 20 minutes to This one pushes that, goes the extra 10, gets just about a half hour of content.
And which is good. I mean, go ahead.
No, you're fine.
Which is good for this being an origin piece and wanting to cover as much ground as possible. I do feel like there could be an argument that if you want to do a good origin, you necessarily don't like the best ones are like the famous example of like the one-page All-Star Superman origin, or like the Batman origin in year one, where it's just like panel. Like the shorter you can get that across, the better. But sometimes for a character like that you're just introducing to an audience and you want to get what makes them cool and what they're about, spending time to build them up a little bit and living in that world a little bit as long as you can, I think is a very smart idea. So I think it's a very cool way that they actually did boost the length of this compared to other fan films, especially considering the production on this compared to those fan films. Like, I just want to say off the bat, this is shot beautifully. Whoever directed this, specifically, like the director, I thought fantastic job, especially for a fan. I don't know if they've done any previous work or if it's their like directorial debut and it's just a couple of friends, which probably seems the most likely one. But really well done for the storytelling. I think actually enhances a lot of the things. Not necessarily saying like, oh no, everything was bad before, but like I that was the thing that stood out for me from the get-go that I want to make sure I get in, is not only is it very good length for a fan film, which means it costs more and it took more time to make, but the consistent quality of the shots and the locations and making sure the characters are lit properly and all of that I thought was fantastic.
Particularly for a fan film at night in which all the characters kind of by necessity because of their identity are wearing black.
Exactly right. That's you kind of ask for a harder task.
Yeah, like that's one of the things. So yeah, it is just really well shot. I saw that they've got a logo right at the end credits. It says like shot on red, and red cameras are ridiculous. If I wasn't able to, because though I have a 4K TV, I watched this on my PlayStation, so that's only able to output 1080. But they like the little YouTube thing says available in 4K, and I'm just like, it's just incredible that a fan film can do something like that. Keep in mind, like the Star Wars prequels are shot in 1080. Like just when you kind of think about the fact that a fucking fan film now has better picture quality than a major motion picture from like 20 years ago, it's kind of crazy. That all being said, like I do really like the visual direction of this. I think the costuming is all like pretty, it's not, I don't think anything's like quote unquote screen accurate, but it doesn't have to be, because like Blade, because of the Wesley Snipes films, has such a utility to his look. It's so much about just like, this is what I need going into this situation kind of thing. And so as long as there's black and leather and he's got the sword, you're pretty much set. I guess the sword and the haircut and the shades.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is you can put Blade in basically anything as long as it's got the shades and the haircut. I think, because that's like his Frank Castle, you can put in anything as long as it's got the white skull, is kind of the thing. You just need that, and then that's such good design work that everything else is kind of secondary. Which is really good way of making what on paper sounds like a complicated design in fact be very simple and versatile. So again, very good costume work there. Glad they recognized that.
Yeah, and I thought like the costuming of all the other characters was actually pretty cool too. I like the, it's got the sexy vampire look for
everyone's got the grungy fetishist vampire look, which works really well for the material.
I mean, and that is Blade. That's like kind of the vampire shtick that they really leaned into as much as they were able, at least in the late 90s, early 2000s when they were making those films. And so it's interesting to see the influence there. Like, to the point of just the way the film looks, like I really like a bunch of the fight choreography. I think that's done really well overall. I thought the effects work, what I want to say here, I thought the blood and brief effects work, we get like that for like squirting blood and stuff. I thought that looked pretty good. It was really well integrated. I can't tell if it's like squibs or if it's digitally added in after the fact. I think I'm gonna lean to like squibs, but I just don't know.
It might be a mix of both.
Yeah. I will say some of the fight choreography is better than others. Like, I really like the last fight scene. And I like the fight scene with the blonde vampire lady. The fight to get to the blonde vampire lady, I feel was probably really weak with all the masked people. That I don't know if they were vampires or humans. Because that was a little vague, given that the other person with the mask is like, being fed off of. So it was like, so are all of them humans just waiting to be fed off of, or what's going on with this? Stuff like that, details like that, make me wonder if this is directly based on any one thing, or if this is just them trying to set up their own origin for Blade.
I got the feeling
the
from
general
this.
feeling of it.
Yeah, I got the feeling from this that this is very much die-hard Blade fans directly adapting things from comics, characters and locations and maybe even moments. What immediately made me think that was they went to the effort of having that intro sequence be all really good digital art and retelling like the origin of like Blade and his mother and the baby and all of that going forward. That means it's okay that they're coming from this from a comic book place, and the movie is kind of just also here. They're just fans of the material in general, but also the fact that we get these flashbacks with his mentor, and then we're directly thrown in to here. And I will say this is maybe a flaw of the thing, but I understand why they would do this, is I think a lot of the things that comes in to this, like with the group, and you kind of thrown in with like the blood shadows, right? Yeah. I think if you're a Blade fan, that's probably like, oh snap, they're doing the blood shadows. Like they skip that in the film, like they're going through all of that kind of thing, right? That's probably where that comes from. I could be entirely wrong. This is me coming from it, but I got that vibe. Is this was very much Blade fans wanting to put their favorite things or like things they missed on screen. Specifically, they put this like Daywalker Blade Origins, and it kind of sets up like as a pilot. It feels like this is like, okay, we're doing Blade Year 1, and then we're gonna do every major Blade film we possibly can, or at least imply that. Especially with like the Wolverine cameo, these feel like massive comic book fans.
Yeah, I mean they've got 2 other fan films on their channel. Oddly enough, I didn't realize it when I picked this. On Geeky Gentlemen with Manos, we reviewed one of their films is the Catwoman fan film that they've got, and they've also got a Wolverine fan film. So it's definitely something that they're very passionate about, doing this really cool fan work, and that's something I really appreciate. It gets kind of not annoying, but it gets kind of like disingenuous sometimes. I feel like a lot of people like do a fan film just to get some notoriety as opposed to for love of the thing itself. I don't think they'd do something this long if it were if that were the case. So I think these guys are very much committed to it, which is very appreciative. So yeah, I don't know, the implication I got is that this is probably referencing a bunch of things within the comics continuity or something, or at least trying to like adapt those things and sell it in a more general audience kind of acceptable way. All that being said, I don't know if that's the best choice they could have made to present it, because it does come off as like really confusing for a good long while that Blade is like working with vampires, when like I'll admit I'm not a Blade fan, but the thing I know about Blade is he's the half vampire that kills vampires, and so just like admittedly something's up because they don't start him off there, but when we jump to future Blade, he's working with vampires, and it's like it takes a while before you get a payoff for why. And so I was a bit surprised by that choice, and I don't know if it was the clearest decision to make. And how did you feel about the payoff that he was like going after one vampire, and so he's kind of going undercover with other vampires to get there?
Yeah, I thought definitely as I was watching it, that was like something like, oh, this is this is against what I perceive, but I would argue maybe that's a good thing, right? Is you want to go for that blade? That's kind of more straightforward. You got the film for that, right? This is probably very smartly. It's like we've got a thing from the comics that people don't really know happened and will seem really strange to the casual fan, and it'll make them ask more questions. And it made me want to find out. Why is there something to this, or is this like a new take, or am I just missing something? So I actually respect that decision. I think that's a very cool way to subvert expectations using the history of the character, right? And it makes sense as well that if you are going to be looking for someone like that in a place where they hide, it kind of gives that like Interview with a Vampire vibe, where like they just search around the world for this one vampire. It's like impossible because they're all in these secret cults. And I imagine this probably was like, well, shit, they're all in deeper cults within deeper cults. I need to get in part of that to find this one guy. And if I'll kill some along the way, so be it. And I think that also is good there, because then you've got like kind of the dual morality thing is like, he's in here for a specific reason, but he's just seeing the rest of the guys he's working with, and they're just complete monsters. And it's like he's got this eye bigger on the bigger monster, not realizing that reality, you probably should have just killed everyone else here as well. Like there was no, it's like I think that's strong. I think that's a good young learning curve for a young Blade, that he would make that mistake, that he would think, I'll do this for the greater good, and not kind of realize, no, all of these people need to go.
Which is, I think that's interesting, because we set up like sympathetic vampire here, like sympathetic vampire love interest / ridiculously attractive actress in very it's good casting. Like seriously, you set that up as a character to put her in, and she's kind of like, this maternal isn't the right word, because she's got this love interest, but she's this very nurturing kind of character, which is a weird direction. I don't think I've seen a nurturing vampire before anywhere. So it was an interesting idea to put that in there, and so it kind of makes me wonder. I mean, this is 2017, so if they're gonna do a sequel, that's 3 years ago at this point. So it seems doubtful that they'd follow this up anymore. But they set up a lot of things. They set up Deacon Frost. They set up this, kind of quasi love interest character that feels like this game of deception that's being played with her and stuff. And so you get to the end of this film and you don't know what she knew when, and that creates an interesting point of diversion, I think. Yeah, that's what I got for right now. Why don't you take us somewhere?
No, I think that's a very strong thing. I think just in establishing these things, there's normally two ways you can kind of go, and that is just focusing on your main character. Like if you're going to do a fan film, it's just, we're going to do a character piece on this one person and everyone else kind of background, right? Or you can do kind of just, let's get as many characters as possible as we can. This, I think, does a good balance of, we set up Blade, but because Blade as a character is kind of stoic and he doesn't talk that much, we don't sacrifice that. We just have other characters around him there to play off of, to get that reaction from him, to provoke. The scenes when he's a kid, he's got the mentor, is kind of, again, doing that kind of classic pushing him, getting a response, sage words of advice. You've got the antagonist, he's the antagonist of this piece at least, who's the big leader, who's immediately kind of pushing him and getting up in his face and enticing a response. And then you've got the blonde vampire lady. Again, she's way more pushy. Like, they could have easily gone boring with this and had stoic Blade fight stoic vampires, but I think they understood the character. It's just like, he plays off better against eccentrics, against people who could fight that. So I very liked giving all the things with that. The love interest character, again, awful with the names. Make a sequel and it will be easier to remember the names. There you go, guys. But like, I thought she was definitely the standout in that purposely, because again, it gives you that personal connection to why he probably is staying a bit longer than he should be, because he's got that person there to like hold him in and like gives him that tether.
And then that gets played with because he finds out that like he's been manipulated, he's been played to just take part in this little vampire cult, and so you get this like, did she know, and was she meant to try to keep him there, or was she just generally nice to him and she didn't realize that he was being played, and yada 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 yada.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot there. I would say all of that I thought was strong. The only thing that did really stand out with me in terms of what they were doing, that on paper I like conceptually, but I think the execution failed the moment quite a bit, is the death of the mental figure.
Yeah, it does come a bit out of nowhere, and you realize like, oh, okay, he's already been killed, and Blade just kind of, at least the way it's presented, he just, finishes him off like half a second earlier or something without realizing it because of the scare. And then you get to the end of it, and you have him say, do it. And so it's like, wait, so was this like a proof to get him in the gang, and like the old man just accepted it? Or like, I don't know, was it a play? What was going on there? It does leave a lot of questions.
Mm-hmm. So it's got that going against it, and I also feel just like how it was done, how it was acted, how it was shot, I think just comes across a bit goofy compared to the serious moment it needs to be. Going for a wide shot for that, I don't think was the right choice. It just makes him feel like it's like a skit, right? It's like, oh, hi, Blade, oh! It's just like, right, you don't want, it's like it's the emotional crux of the story, right? And I feel like that just let it down a bit. It by no means breaks the film. That's just me with a comment and directly review eye. And I was like, oh, that could have been done better. It still works for the thing. I still like the idea again. We've got this whole thing from since he's been a kid to that initial fight scene to now where we keep setting up that he's got a problem controlling himself. He's very instinctual, and that's what he's at again. So it makes sense that if you sneak up on this guy, it probably is your fault what happens next, because he's always on edge. Again, on paper, I think it works. I just think you could have maybe made that a little bit faster, a little bit more sudden, and zoom in on the guy's, on the actor for Blade's face, and just as he's like raring with the fangs maybe. But at the same time, I don't know the logistics of that. I don't know how they had to do that properly, if they had the right equipment, or if that's just what they thought worked best. So I can only harp on it too much, but I will say that is the one major flaw that stuck out to me in all of this, which, to be fair, I think is a very good indication of quality, because lesser works, a lot of fan films are shot like that scene the entire time. And it lets down a lot of moments. Whereas that was just the one time where I felt maybe someone else coming in and looking at that could have pointed out, and they could have reshot, or whatever. Specifically because, again, that is such a crux of this story.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Let me ask you this, because this is something I feel a lot of fan films just... I generally skip over it, but I do want to give it some praise when it's done well, as I feel it is here. Fan films usually have pretty wooden or stiff performances and actors, and that's usually just a result of, because it's mostly just friends and everyone's just trying their best, but very rarely are fan films able to have proper actors in them, and so I was actually really happy overall with the performances and stuff we get in here. I will say, I think the villain is a stronger performance than Blade himself, but at the same time, they play off of each other pretty well. There's dips and dives in quality and stuff, but for what they're doing, kid actor was pretty decent. Which again, the kid actors are hard enough to get good in mainline Hollywood films. It's pretty impressive that they managed a pretty decent performance from a child actor in a fan film like this.
Especially the poor kid getting ran through the races. It's like, you're like, oh wow, he's doing that tire a lot of things. And then you put in the bang, how many times do they have to do that to get the right shot? Like it was probably exhausted by the end of it.
They probably took breaks.
Yeah, exactly. But like, it's still in that heat. Like, oof, that's a champion right there.
That's a good point. It's a good point. Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting one. The number of performances you get in here, and I don't know. I was pretty happy with how they're all done. What did you think?
Yeah, definitely. I'll probably give the Blade guy a little bit more credit, simply because I feel like that is a deliberately understated performance. It is easier to act as the in-your-face villain than it is the quiet hero.
That's a fair point.
So I feel like I don't want to. I feel like I'll peach it a little bit there, but especially when you're playing when everyone else is kind of stealing the spotlight. Justify the nature of the property, right? It's kind of like the Batman actor thing. They always get overshadowed by the villains.
Yeah.
So I'll give him that. I feel that did a good job. I really like the mentor figure actor here as well. I think he nailed all of his lines, and that sequence where he's talking over as we get this great tracking shot of like Blade running through the desert, and he's talking about like what he needs to do to keep pulling through, and like the cost of this life, and like that I think really is like a strong, this is why we like this character, this is what Blade's all about. It's just this dude just won't stop. This guy is just he was from birth, he's had a shit life. Everything about him's just been doomed to fucking fail. He had to eat animals in the shed, and he has to use drugs to keep his own things down, and he's waddling through the bleakness of like the night, and he's not even a proper vampire. He can't do all these things, but he's in the middle, right in there, and he's like, everything's fucked. He's like, yeah, so you don't owe anyone anything, but you're gonna do it, and he's like, yeah, go keeps going for it. So I think I thought that was a really good moment. I thought that was really well scripted. I thought that was really well done. And a great use. Again, that's one thing that really shocked me as well. Normally fan films, and we get a little bit of this in like the scene where they take out the blonde vampire, and like it's in the same abandoned warehouse that every fan film seems to be shot in. But like that's I love that. I love it. It's like the Doctor Who gravel quarries. It's like everyone has one. Everyone's got to have a scene with that. But like everything else with like when you get to see the opening of the fight in the car park, and then the desert shots, and then using that to their advantage, really cool, unique thing to have vampires in a desert, which you can only really get away with Blade. So yeah, I dug all of that. Performance wise, again, just reiterating what you said, the only thing I would say that maybe I thought could have been tightened up is I would have liked to spend a little bit more time with Blade and his mentor before he gets diced or bladed. I think that would have been cool to have a scene with grown up Blade and his mentor prior to leave. Like again, it's harder because you've only got the two actors, right? But like I think there's a middle point there that I would have liked to see to really like. Because then when he dies, it's not just... Because before that, every scene you've spent with him has been with the kid, right? Mm-hmm. So there's like that less of an emotional gut punch than if you'd got a scene prior with closer to adult age Blade, just bonding with him, and then that happens. It gives you, I think, a stronger oomph. And especially if you've got those two actors and you've got that one set, an extra scene there probably would have been really possible, is what I would say. Like, use the talent you've got, because you've got really good talent.
Yeah, that's a good point, I feel. One thing that I think I would like, I guess, more of an explanation on is the vampire, the final fight, like, timing and location. Because it's kind of cool to have a vampire fight, like, close to dawn. But at the same time, if I'm the leader of a vampire cult, that is like the worst time to have like a challenge fight with someone that apparently can survive in the daylight. You know, like that was just an oddly timed thing, because like he beats him, and luckily all the other vampires have to run away because it's daylight. And I'm like, man, this was the worst timing for this ever. Oddly enough, the thing that I think would have been, like, I don't know if you necessarily have to rewrite the film for this, but it's just something to think on. I guess the more surprising move would have been to have Blade lose the fight and only survived because of the sunrise or something like that, you know?
Gives him the out, like using his heritage for the good. I think that's maybe something you do later with like Blade. Pull him out. I think this is more selling why Blade is going to be such a big threat to everyone. You could either go either way. I do like your idea of that. I think that is a creative way, but I can also see why they'd be like, this might be our only chance with Blade. We want to see him get like the fucking Blade kill.
I mean that's fair, and it is cool. It is cool. It's just like the notion of shooting a Blade fight scene as the sun is rising, as dawn comes, is I think a really, really cool idea. I think that's got a lot of neat thematic weight to what makes Blade interesting. It's just it you could argue, I think, that it kind of breaks the logic of the characters and just in universe. Like, I don't understand why they would choose to confront him at that point. To be fair, maybe they have no other choice but to confront him at that point because he's just let the prisoner go. And so the implication seems to be that, like, they have to confront him right there, right then. So I don't know. It's a little bit of one, little bit of the other, I think. Still trying to scratch my head to figure out how vampires, like, legally purchased a gym. If you can't go outside during the day, banking hours don't work out that way. I just don't know.
Dude, that's where the familiars come in, man. You're losing your vampire. It's just amateur hour. Can't believe this. So you're gonna start in this shit with a fucking actual. Never mind. Moving on.
Actual.
Break it up. Oh fuck, Blade! Sal's gonna get caught. You listen to Geeky Gentleman on his fan film review. He's like, wait a sec.
Oh my god. Oh, alrighty. Otherwise, is there anything else you want to talk about with this one, or do we want to move on to ratings?
Just in terms of, I guess a fun thing to do with this. Given they showed Wolverine turning up during this thing, and like fan films like to go, would you like them to continue doing these things? Would you like to see them tackle any other Marvel characters, like in DC characters, like this team?
I mean, certainly. From what I remember, their Catwoman fan film was pretty good. Their Wolverine fan film, they seem to have a passion for the character because they gave him a cameo in here, and I like the way he cameos but contributes nothing. And I mean that in like a good way. He doesn't. It's not like Blade would have lost if he hadn't met Wolverine. It's just Wolverine just says some shit to him, and then fucks off, and it's a good place to put Wolverine just in the entire Marvel universe. He's just the guy that's gonna come in, say some shit, and then leave, and then
he's the shit talker.
Yeah, so I don't know. I thought that was cool. It does definitely make me want to go check out their Wolverine fan film. That might end up being a future pick, and I apologize because I say that. And anytime I say that, it's usually like a year later before I remember to do it. But no, I was quite happy with this overall. So I'd definitely love to see them do more things.
Definitely, I would love to see them tackle this universe. I'd love to see them do a Punisher thing. I think because you got the gore down and you've got the right locations down, you can kind of do like a good revenge story. I think go for it. I think that would be really cool to see, because then if you're in the world of like Wolverine, Blade, Punisher, that's your Marvel Knights movie right there. Throw in Daredevil. Oof, now we're talking.
Alfie, you want to go message these people?
Daredevil actor, I've got the suit. I come with the suit. It saves you a lot of cash.
Yeah, then it's just gonna be about learning all the backflips and fight choreography.
Learning, please. I not only do I know that, I've got the law degree as well, man. Fucking.
Are you Matt Murdock? Are you Matt Murdock? Does Matt Murdock have a Dragon Ball fanfiction series?
I don't know, man.
Is Matt Murdock a fucking weeb?
Yeah, of course Matt Murdock's a weeb. Have you not seen his relationship history? And his goddamn anime fanboy, the ninjas must show up every time he has a story.
Oh my god. Alrighty, this is devolving into silliness. Let's go ahead and go under ratings. So I really do like this. The few complaints I have don't really, in my mind, justify taking anything away from it. So I really am just like I don't want to give it a perfect score because I didn't love it. I enjoyed it, but I didn't like fall in love with it all over again or anything. So I'm gonna give it a 4.5 out of 5 vampire gyms because you got to stay in shape when you're a vampire.
You gotta do those squats, bro.
Yeah.
Gotta get those blade cheeks. For me, I really like this as well. I thought this was a great little short thing that could also lead into the future. Very well executed, very good understanding of the character, very good intro for people. That just makes someone ask more questions. Could be a bit confusing, so that might dock it a little bit, but otherwise, yeah, I really love this. So I'm going to give this 4 out of 5 dead mental figures.
Oh, nice. Alrighty, Alfie, what are we talking about next time?
Eek, on fan film reviews. Well, I've wanted to do this for a while, and I think it's a good time to do it. This one's kind of a long one, so you might want to split this up a little bit and do it over the course of the time we've got. Splitting these episodes over 2 weeks might probably be benefiting that way. And that is the full series of Super Mario Bros. Z.
Okay, man, that'll be an interesting watch. Alright, everyone, we will see you then. Until next time, I'm the Philosopher.
And I am the champion of the oppressed.
And we are your geeky gentlemen, and we will be discussing things.